5 years ago, it was announced that Disneyland Paris was to receive $2.4 billion to expand and transform Walt Disney Studios Park. And now, 5 years later, with Marvel's Avengers Campus open and construction on the Frozen themed land in full swing, let's look ahead to the next 5 years of what the future may hold for Disneyland Paris after Frozen, up next. This video is sponsored by Disney Collect by Topps, which brings collectible card trading into the world of Disney on your iOS and Android devices, making it easier than ever to collect and trade beautifully designed cards that showcase all the characters and special moments within Disney and Pixar animation. From collections showcasing uniquely stylized variations on Disney characters to never-before digitalized animation concept art. And to help you get started, you can use the Wishing Well feature and get some free cards and coins, which you can then use to strategically trade your way to the collection that you desire. So download the free app for iOS and Android today with the link in the description box below. Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and let's get straight into the topic. As when the multi-year transformation of Walt Disney Studios Park was announced all the way back in February of 2018, it was understood at the time that this expansion would have a phased opening timeline, beginning in 2021, with a majority of the expansion intended to be complete and open, ready in time to capitalize upon the increased tourism expected for the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. However, then the pandemic came along, and it delayed construction beyond that of the usually slow construction pace of Disneyland Paris projects. However, judging by the recent construction footage released by Disney, along with aerial images from DLP Report on Twitter and Disneyland Paris Works on Twitter, unfortunately it does seem increasingly unlikely that the Frozen expansion of a 7-acre lake area will be able to speed up the construction pace and catch up to be complete in time for the Summer Olympics of 2024, as instead, it's looking more likely that it's on track to be complete by late 2024, if not summer 2025. But after the Frozen themed land and the lake area opens, the big question that we all want answered is what comes next? And well, the answer to that question used to be in a galaxy far, far away, but that might not be the case anymore, as the Star Wars component was targeting a completion date of around 2025 to 2026. But over the years, there have been hints that it had been postponed substantially, with the first sign being that there were no specific detailed permits filed for the land beyond that of the initial documentation in October of 2018. As in comparison, there were additional detailed permits published in early 2020 for the Frozen themed land, with construction beginning not long after that. Then, on top of that, probably the most telling piece of evidence so far is that any mention of the Star Wars land has been completely omitted from numerous marketing materials since 2019, to such a degree that even the president of Disneyland Paris, Natasha Rafalski, has stated that they are still working on the theme for the third land, which could be interpreted in one of two ways, with the first being that Disney is still planning a Star Wars land, but they are still yet to settle upon an exact Star Wars theme or timeline so that it can be made different from that of the Galaxy's Edge found in California and Florida. Or the other and more obvious way to interpret this is that Disney are still assessing other intellectual properties that would be suitable to be included as part of the lake expansion, as although there are 2 expansion pads around the lake, it is this plot of land here where the Star Wars land was intended that is the most favourable, as it's much larger and it is easier to reach with construction activity. Now before we go any further, I just want to make it very clear that everything else in this video from this point onwards is very much rumour based and is in no way confirmed by Disney until they officially say so. But it does still offer some very interesting insight into what might be in the cards for Disneyland Paris over the next decade, as the reason why Star Wars may no longer be under consideration for Walt Disney Studios Park is because rumours have been swirling recently that indicate that a brand new Star Wars attraction just might be in development for Disneyland Park instead. Now obviously, these are very early blue sky plans, but it's definitely worth discussing. as if true, this will mark the first time in 28 years that Disneyland Park will receive a brand new attraction built from scratch that didn't replace an existing attraction. And if you're wondering whereabouts this supposed Star Wars attraction could be located, well, it's said that it would be at the back of Discoveryland, neatly tucked away behind Space Mountain on the other side of the railroad, to the side of the Discoveryland Theatre, which is a well-known, partially used expansion pad for Disneyland Paris. And the reason why I say partially used is because back in 1997, Disney quickly built the lackluster themed Pizza Planet restaurant to capitalize upon the success of Toy Story. Then, in September of 2016, it was revealed by the COO of Disneyland Paris at the time, Daniel Delcourt, that Pizza Planet was to remain closed for good, with Delcourt even going as far as to call it unworthy of a Disney park. And so with Pizza Planet long gone, it means that the expansion pad is available yet again. And this area here is actually around 4 acres in size, which is obviously not enough space to fit an entire 14-acre Galaxy's Edge like what's seen over in Disneyland and Disney World. But there is actually enough space to accommodate the entire Rise of the Resistance show building and surrounding area, albeit with a different configuration. But apparently, this rumoured attraction isn't going to be another Rise of the Resistance, but instead it is said that Disney is considering a speeder bike roller coaster that could take place outside, which this 4-acre plot of land would provide more than enough space for an exciting speeder bike chase. And if this is true, then it seems logical that this would likely make use of the same ride system that Disney has used for the Tron Light Cycle Run attraction, that was manufactured by the Dutch company of Vekoma. But even though this is all rumour for the time being, you're probably still wondering why would Disney be willing to put 2 Star Wars themed roller coasters in the same exact area? As after all, the Hyperspace Mountain overlay was only meant to be temporary, as part of the Season of the Force and the 25th anniversary celebrations of Disneyland Paris in 2017. But it has ended up becoming semi-permanent, still in operation 6 years later. However, that may not be a problem for long, as apparently as part of the second part of this rumour, Space Mountain would be set to return to its original Jules Verne To the Moon theme, with it being tied into the popular Disney Parks mythology of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers instead. And there is a precedent for this, as this would be the exact same approach that Disneyland has recently taken towards Tarzan's Treehouse, retheming it to become the Adventureland Treehouse, which is using the Society of Explorers and Adventurers as the narrative and backstory. And if this does end up happening, then it would follow the same pattern of the Discoveryland Space Mountain undergoing a major change roughly every decade, which is something that I would love to see, as although I'm always going to have a soft spot for Magic Kingdom's Space Mountain, indisputably, the Paris version of Space Mountain is the best iteration of the attraction in terms of effects, ride system and thrill factor. But then, after having said all of that, where does this leave the third themed land for Walt Disney Studios Park if it's not going to be themed to Star Wars? And well, it's said that there are 2 options under consideration. With the first rumoured concept not coming as any great surprise, but Disney is apparently more serious about building a Pandora the world of Avatar. As with the franchise proving yet again to be a box office juggernaut with Avatar 2, The Way of Water crossing over $2.3 billion at the worldwide box office, and the fact that there are many Avatar sequels on the way over the next decade, it seems that Avatar would be a logical choice and one that has reportedly been earmarked for a future expansion. And in my opinion, I think that this has the most potential, as after all The Way of Water was beautifully set within a water environment that could offer Imagineering an opportunity to create a different type of Pandora themed land that would not just be a complete copy and paste clone of the floating mountains at Walt Disney World, but instead maybe they could lean into the second movie even more with the Malmock Stone Arches, accompanied with an attraction, a restaurant and a couple of shops as a smaller version of a Pandora land. Then for the next rumoured land, I've got to say that I am a little bit sceptical about this, and it will probably catch you off guard as well. But insiders have claimed that a land themed to The Lion King is also said to be under consideration. Now certainly, The Lion King is definitely deserving of recognition, as it is undeniably one of the most popular animated franchises of all time. but admittedly I'm still having a little bit of trouble understanding exactly how this would fit thematically, as the Lion King's story takes place on the Pride Lands of Africa, which is loosely based on Kenya and Tanzania, and more specifically the Great Rift Valley and Hell's Gates Gorge. And although both Kenya and Tanzania do technically have coastal borders with the Indian Ocean, I think most would find it a little strange to think of the Pride Lands naturally being just off a giant body of water. But if this is true that Disney is considering the Lion King as an expansion land at Walt Disney Studios Park, then it will certainly be interesting to see how Imagineering approach such a concept, as after all, despite the popularity of the franchise over the past 3 decades, it has never received a ride-through attraction, which might be to do with the story and the characters not lending themselves naturally to a ride-through format, besides that of the obvious book report style Fantasyland attraction that they could make. So maybe they could go in the direction of having a Festival of the Lion King type show instead. And so, in conclusion, as is often the case when dealing with rumours, some of this might become a reality, and some probably will not. But it is certainly encouraging to hear that investment is being discussed beyond that of a Frozen expansion, as it will make for a very interesting next decade for Disneyland Paris. But now, it's over to you, Waltineers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions regarding this rumoured news for the future of Disneyland Paris, and what would you like to see as part of that third themed land for Walt Disney Studios Park's expansion? And so, if you've enjoyed this video for today, then be sure to give this video a massive thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't already, and check out the rest of the videos on this channel, and also consider joining the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon. And I also want to give a thanks to all of the Waltineer Gold members here as well. And with all of that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.